You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Total Wellness Tuesday, where the topic of the day is going to be outsmarting your blood sugar clock. So what I want to go through today is exactly how your blood sugar metabolism works throughout the course of a day. And if you're in tune with it, if you understand when your highs and lows are naturally going to be, you're going to be able to get the most out of your exercise, the most out of eating carbohydrates. Yes, it's actually okay to eat some carbohydrates and still be able to maintain the weight, lose the weight, or overall increase your wellness, because I know not everybody's goal is to burn more body fat, lose more weight. A lot more people are maybe focused on right now, how do I keep my body well? How do I increase my overall energy? How do I improve my overall cognitive function, which is my brain function, the way that I think, the way that I create memories, and the way that I remember things. So here's the thing. We work with so many people in our private practice and have worked with so many people over the last 20 years or so. What I want to do is share with you this. If you are someone that is struggling with brain fog, lower thyroid, estrogen dominance, low energy, more aches and pains, and overall inflammation, it is possible, like honestly, it is possible you are simply not eating enough carbohydrates, because we've come to believe that carbohydrates are the enemy. And I don't want you to feel this way. I don't want you to believe this. I'll be teaching this in depth this January. So again, I've taught this before. If you look at a conglomeration of podcasts, all the different podcasts, so many wellness and weight loss Wednesdays. But what I want to teach you is this, is that what we have to do is simply get the blood sugar under control. And once blood sugar is under control, carbohydrates are no longer the enemy. In the beginning, we feel that way. The reason we feel that way is because any carbs we might eat start to spike our blood sugar. But that's simply because we don't have our blood sugar under control and we're eating erratically during the day. So our mitochondria is not able to use it for energy. Our brain's not able to use it for energy. It can't be brought into the cells by insulin. And so therefore, we start to store it more as body fat. But a lot of the time, what we do is we will help someone transition off of a low-carb diet. I did a podcast on that. You're welcome to check that out, how to transition off a low-carb diet. All of these previous podcasts are at stephencabral.com/podcast. Today's podcast is at stephencabral.com/1397. So all the show notes links will be there. If we talk during the show and one particular show keeps popping up, we'll embed that over at 1397. But what I want to share with you today is this, is that your body works on what we call a diphasic, or really a diurnal rhythm. And that means essentially we're diurnal beings, we're diphasic beings. There's two parts of our day. We have a part of our day where we're meant to be up, we're meant to be awoke or awake. And what we want to do is we want to be moving and we want to be expending energy. And then we want a second half of the day, which is naturally built in, by the way, to work on overall detoxification, rejuvenation, digestion, absorb it all, rebuild the body, and then the next day we start to break it down. Now we see this mimicked in nature all over the world, and I'll go over that right now. So what does this exactly mean? Well, if you think about it, during the day, as the sun starts to rise, flowers will begin to open. Trees will actually lean towards the sun. But what happens is this, is that this is the phase where we are awake. It's more of a catabolic base phase. The body is doing work, it's breaking down a little bit, and then we actually know this, right? Because we talk so much about blue light. Well, when the sun starts to set, right? We want less of that blue light. So we wear these blue blocking glasses and all these different devices now. But what happens is our cortisol will naturally start to then lower. This is a good thing, right? Well, this is a good thing. And the body will start to calm down. We'll start to eventually produce a little bit more melatonin. This is the phase of unwinding and relaxing, getting ready for bed for that evening. So what I want to do, though, is show you how the blood sugar works in conjunction with that. And I'll start with that right now. So let's take it from the very top. Let's take it from the beginning of the day. First thing I want you to know is this, and I teach this a lot in IHP, and I won't get too crazy in depth today. But around 4 a.m., I know that most people are still in bed at that time, and you really should be. I mean, people should be in bed still at 4 a.m. Now, some people have to get up for work, and believe me, I understand there's a million different reasons why. When I used to work back in the day, I had to get up at 4 a.m., so I get it. And I mean, it is what it is. It's wherever you're at in your life right now. But around 4 a.m., the body is starting to wake up before you're awake. Here's what happens. Cortisol starts to begin to slowly rise. Why does that matter? We always think of cortisol as this bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Too much cortisol, very bad thing. Too little cortisol, that's what I had, very bad thing, right? That's Addison's disease. Too much is Cushing's disease. But here's the thing. A slight rise in cortisol starting at 4 a.m. begins to lower our melatonin levels naturally. And here's why. They have an inverse relationship, right? Sun and the moon, inverse relationship. Sun's out, moon's not out. Yes, I know you can always say, well, the moon's over here, and I get it. But here's the thing. As cortisol rises, here's what happens. Melatonin starts to decrease. And if our melatonin comes up, well, cortisol is going to naturally decrease. But cortisol has to be low in order for that to happen. Now, the nice thing is, as cortisol starts to rise 4 a.m., we begin to start to move towards our waking part of our day. When is that going to be? Well, usually it's somewhere between 6 and 8 a.m. Why? Because that is when the sun is rising. That's where we're naturally meant to get out of bed. And there's a contraindication for everyone. We'll go through some of those today, but 6 to 8 a.m. if you're working a normal schedule, your typical 9 to 5 job or whatever it might be, 8 to 6, up around 6 a.m., 7 a.m. or so. So here's the thing. Around 4 a.m., the same thing happens with your thyroid. Now, why does this matter? Well, your thyroid is that metabolic regulator. That is a big boost to the metabolism. So what's the body doing? Well, it's beginning to wake up for the day. Now, we're talking about blood sugar. What does this have to do with blood sugar, you ask, right? Why are you talking about this and not blood sugar? Well, here's what happens. As more cortisol, not as much thyroid. Thyroid does matter. Thyroid's part of the metabolism. It starts to rev you up, which means what? You need more calories. You need calories, right? You need to fuel the machine. So here's what happens, though. As cortisol begins to rise and your body is starting to use up more fuel, you're waking up, right? You're not at that low heart rate. You're not in the deep slumber. Your blood sugar is naturally a little bit lower. And as cortisol begins to rise, it's going to need glucose. This is where a lot of health professionals go wrong. They say a lot of heavy fat in the morning or a lot of protein. That is incorrect. It's incorrect on multiple levels. Now, why do they say it? Why do they get away with it? And again, I get it. I've done it before. I realize why they're saying it. Because it's still great for body transformation. So here's the thing. If you do steak and eggs for breakfast, or an big omelet for breakfast, or chicken sausage and spinach for breakfast, you will transform your body. It will help you lose weight. I am not saying that that is not true. I've done this for many, many years, and it works, right? I've done it myself. It works. But transforming your body and being healthy are two different things. Now, you can be healthy and transform your body. That's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So I want you to always understand, because someone looks great and they're in great shape does not mean the insides are healthy as well. And I mean, that's a huge, huge caveat to all of this. So here's what happens, though. And a lot of people say, oh, if you have adrenal fatigue, no carbs in the morning. You have to understand, if you don't give your body any carbs in the morning, your body is naturally at its lowest blood sugar. If it's balanced, it's at its lowest blood sugar. And you give it no carbs, and you're raising cortisol levels, and you're beginning your stress and work for the day. Here's what happens. It's going to get glucose somehow. It's going to. And so if you put protein in your body, what's going to happen is it will break down protein and convert it to glucose, carbohydrates. A lot of us forget that your body will make it. Okay, so it's called gluconeogenesis, and that is us breaking down protein and turning it into sugar. And again, we say sugar, oh, it's so bad. Well, here's the thing. If you do it right, you're only giving your body enough, well, you're giving your body slow release carbs to use for energy and not spike your blood sugar. No one's talking about, I don't want you to spike your blood sugar to 200. I'm certainly not talking about that. And I'll talk about how to test that today as well. But I want you to think of it this way. Carbohydrates in the morning, fruits, berries, half a grapefruit, a smoothie like we do, time released with all that fiber over the course of an hour, drinking a smoothie, it's absolutely fantastic. And again, I'm not doing this to promote smoothies. You have to understand that. You can make a smoothie with any company in the world, right? That's the thing is like, there's no agenda here. People are like, oh, well, are you promoting this? I have nothing to promote. Meaning like I'm promoting natural health. People are like, oh, are you promoting Game Changers? No, I'm not promoting Game Changers. I'm not promoting Food Inc. I'm not promoting anything. I'm promoting the truth. That's it. Your body goes through something, and if you lab test, so a lot of practitioners know this, called the cortisol awakening response. And that can mean if your body spikes cortisol too quickly in the morning, and because it can raise it up really sharply based on low blood sugar. Like that is one of the reasons there can be a sharper cortisol awakening response, which happens approximately 30 minutes after awakening. Now, again, it can happen for multiple reasons. And I'm not discounting the other ones, but one of the big ones is someone wakes up and they're lower blood sugar, and when you go low blood sugar, your body will spike cortisol. Now, there are many reasons. Someone could be dumping a half a pot of coffee into their mug and drinking that right away, which will compound that cortisol spike. And that's why if someone's having coffee, I do like them to have some breakfast first. Because caffeine will spike glucose. It will spike sugar. It really will. I mean, again, if you have any stored glucose in your liver or you're taking in protein, your body it will break that down and create carbohydrates because that's what it wants. Carbohydrates are the preferred fuel source no matter what anybody tells you. Your body can break down protein to create glucose. Your body can use up stored reserves. Your body could produce ketones. Your body is a survivor. It's meant to survive. But that doesn't mean you're going to thrive that way. You can get away with it. You can be amped up because of adrenaline and norepinephrine doing those types of things and high cortisol. But I'll tell you, high cortisol, high adrenaline, high norepinephrine over time will burn you up. It will age you at a faster rate. That's not what I want for you. So, does it make sense to maybe have carbohydrates in the morning for breakfast? It looks like it based on your body's natural response. Now remember, if you are looking to lose weight and transform your body, it does not mean that I recommend all of a sudden having 2-3 cups of starch or carbohydrate in the morning. What I'm recommending is that you do something like a functional medicine detox, like easing in 1 cup of berries first thing in the morning as part of your breakfast. And then you can ease in maybe more after that. But I've talked about this on previous shows, so I don't want to get too in the weeds today. If you ever want to know if you're spiking your blood sugar too much, simple, easy way to do this. And that would be simply looking at using a glucometer. And again, we'll try to link up one other show at least using the glucometer. It's so easy to do. It's just one little finger poke. And what it does is it actually looks at what your blood sugar is a half hour after a meal. And then if you wanted, you could do it. I like people to do it 2 hours after a meal as well. Because 2 hours after a meal, your blood sugar should be all the way back down below 100. Ideally, I like it between 75 and 95. Super simple, easy to do, and certainly very easy to check on these things. So that's what I recommend you do. And then there's no guesswork. People are always debating this and that. I say, listen, in the year we're basically in 2020, right? So there's no need to guess anymore. There honestly isn't. Is your blood sugar low in the morning? Well, you could test it. That's the thing. It's like you could simply test it 20 minutes, 30 minutes after waking up. If you're in the lower 70s, I know that's considered within range, but you're probably a body type, especially the ectomorph or Vata body type, that just needs more carbohydrates. And these people are being told that carbs are bad. Listen, they're going to burn out their nervous system if we keep telling these people that carbohydrates are bad for them. Carbohydrates are bad if you can't process them. Carbohydrates certainly aren't bad if you can, because they are the preferred fuel source. So I never want us to lose sight of that or lose track of that at all. So that's why I'm bringing that to you today. All right, so second part I want to go over right now is what happens after breakfast. So usually we're pretty good for the whole morning, and that's why we don't want to be grazing all day long. We really don't, because you want your blood sugar to settle back in. I mean, again, how many carbs do you need? Well, you need enough carbs to be able to fuel your body. So, my thing is this. If you have a pretty relaxed morning and you're not really burning any carbohydrates at all, then, or burning any fuel, you're just kind of sitting down all day long, you probably don't need that many carbs. You need a little bit, maybe 1 cup of berries is all you need to start your day, and that can be part of your smoothie. And that's absolutely great. But let your blood sugar settle back down. And that means about 3 hours or so after you finish breakfast, it could be more, could be 4 hours, you're going to then look to have your lunch. Now, your body will, if you start to get balanced, it won't tell you this initially, but when you start to get healthy and you start to get balanced, you'll actually start to feel a little hungry. That is a good thing. Hunger is a sign that your body is ready to take food. So once you get that first signs that you are hungry, this is your time to have lunch. Now, one other thing I want to share with you, all of this happens over time, meaning that you actually have to get into an eating cycle when your body knows when food will be coming. This is so overrated, or I should say so overlooked, not overrated at all, it's underrated, is get your body on a sleep cycle and on an eating cycle. Try to eat within a half hour of the same time every single day. Try to go to bed within a half hour of the same time. Wake up within a half hour of the same time. It is life-changing when you do that. Your body has far less guesswork, and it begins to actually upregulate digestion. When it knows food is coming, it begins to get the body ready when it's bedtime, and it naturally wakes you up without an alarm clock. I mean, there's so few things in life that are more important than this. All right, but now we're going to have lunch. Now, here's the thing. We're going to eat more food. And we look at our macros in the meal. Carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We want all of them at the meal. In Ayurveda, lunch is the biggest meal of the day, usually taken somewhere between 11 and 1 p.m. So 11 a.m., 1 p.m., somewhere within that range. Now, again, blood sugar will spike. We don't want it off the charts, right? But we're going to get a little bit of a spike, even if you just have a protein meal. Like, that's the thing. It will spike blood sugar. So I want to look at a normal spike in blood sugar, nothing super high. And I want that to be less than 150, 30 minutes post-meal. But even more important, I want that back down to a normal glucose level, ideally between a 75 and 95, 2 hours after that meal. Now, a lot can spike blood sugar. The meal could be too big. So we're going to look at that. That's called the glycemic load of the meal. If the meal is too big or even too heavy in protein, that could spike blood sugar as well. So we want to find a place where blood sugar, again, settles in. You had your food. You're satiated, you're not hungry an hour or 2 hours after your meal, you're good. Everything is good. Now, here's the thing. The body will start to get a little fall, a small fall in energy overall around the 3:30, 4 o'clock hour. This is about 3.5 hours or so for a lot of people after lunch, 4 o'clock, blood sugar is starting to come down a little bit. It's also end of the day. There's sometimes a little boredom to go there. There's a little bit of anxiety towards the end of the day. And there's multiple factors besides the dropping in cortisol that now we're trying to push through. So remember, it's very different, our Western-based lifestyle. Most people will be like, okay, good, yeah, 4 o'clock, starting to wind down the day. But not for us. A lot of us are working till 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or even going to the gym at 5 or 6 o'clock or so. So it's a little different. Now keep in mind, the human body's not supposed to push. We're good from like 7 o'clock in the morning till about 7 at night, and then we just really have to turn things down. But that doesn't mean we should be ramping up with more caffeine, which will spike cortisol, and it's unnatural to spike cortisol. It's unnatural to spike blood sugar after that, at that 4 o'clock hour. So if you feel your blood sugar starting to drop mid-afternoon, again, you can test this, a half a cup to a cup of berries could be really great. A small smoothie you could do, just a green juice, really easy to digest. Just enough to pick you back up, to get you going till the next, let's say, hour and a half or so to 2 hours till dinner. Now, At dinner, again, that's why I said a small snack. Something easy to digest. A smoothie is obviously liquid. A green juice is liquid. Berries or a small low glycemic fruit, it's 90+% liquid. So when we look at these things, we know that they're going to be easy to digest. They're into our system. They're not going to spike blood sugar. And then they're easy to digest because we don't want to expend a lot of energy with mid-afternoon meals, which is only going to make us more fatigued. And also, it's not going to be out of our stomach by the time it's dinner time. So again, super important because at dinner, we need to make sure we get this meal right because this is the time we don't want to spike our blood sugar because there's not going to be any exercise after dinner, or at least there shouldn't be, right? We're going to keep our body pretty relaxed. Most people, what are they going to do? Get their kids ready for bed, or they're going to clean up, or they're going to just sit on the couch, right? So we don't need to be taking in a lot of heavy carbs at this meal. Why should we take in some carbohydrates though? Why some? Here's why. Carbohydrates are going to better be able to relax your body, relax the nervous system. Protein doesn't relax the nervous system. Fats don't relax the nervous system. Carbohydrates do. Again, how many carbs do you need? Maybe only half a sweet potato. Or maybe for some people at their dinner meal, and again, we teach this in IHP, it might just be 2 cups of veggies, and that's okay. 2 nice big cups of veggies, maybe 3. Fantastic. Add a little bit of olive oil to that, or maybe a little avocado. You can do your vegan protein, or you can do some fish at night, whatever you like. Okay, now, what does it do though? Well, that carbs, whether it's veggies or a half a sweet potato, or maybe it's a full sweet potato, depending on what you need for your body. This is going to allow you to also produce more serotonin. Now, why would producing serotonin, the happy, feel-good neurotransmitter, be good? Because serotonin is a precursor to melatonin. And then melatonin, as long as you have enough vitamin B6, you have enough B vitamins in your body, we're going to be able to use that to wind down around that 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock hour as melatonin is beginning to rise, as long as there's not a lot of blue light, right? As long as you're not staring at a bright screen. So, super important. I want to get to the last piece right now, and that's this. Really important that we get into bed by 10 o'clock. 11 at the very latest. Why? Blood sugar starts to dip between 11 o'clock at night and midnight. So if you're waking up, let me give you a couple things. Okay, so here's why. Get in bed. Get in bed by 10 o'clock. Super important. Cortisol is typically at its lowest point around 9:30. Then a lot of people get a second wind around 10 or 11 o'clock at night. They think they're night owls because of this. It's not. Here's what happens. Blood sugar starts to fall at this time. What happens when blood sugar falls? Cortisol begins to spike then again. It's a natural reaction. What happens is if cortisol begins to spike, the body begins to break down stored glucose. It brings it into the bloodstream. We don't want that. Now, if you're in bed and you're asleep, heart rate's down, everything's relaxed. You don't need that blood sugar drop isn't as severe. Now, if you're someone that's waking up around midnight, an hour or so, or and a half after falling asleep, it could be a blood sugar issue. That's when you want to work with your health practitioner. You want to be able to rebalance those glucose levels. And this is hypoglycemia. This is lower blood sugar. So you don't want the second wind. You want to get your body in bed because ideally you want to be up around 6 o'clock. Now, maybe you wake up at 7, maybe you wake up between 5 and 6. Whatever's working for your body. I'm not going to go over that today. I've talked about that at previous shows. But you want to be in bed 8 hours before you have to wake up. Okay? Average person needs between 7 and 9 hours. I've gone through the podcast. I went through the research. Check out that previous show. That was a big one on how much sleep you need. It was very definitive. Okay? A lot of danger zone, less than 6 hours or less per day. So check out that previous show as well. All right. The last part is this. You don't want the big carbohydrate meal at night. This is when you're going to store more. Okay, we don't want the high blood sugar. You want to go to bed with an empty stomach. You want to go to bed with regulated blood sugar. Again, this is a big one for body transformation. I'll be teaching more of this in the course that I'll be doing in January. Okay, so if your blood sugar is back between the normal range, again, of 75 to 95, you can take your blood sugar before bed. Simple, easy to do with a glucometer. You buy them anywhere. I'll link them up today, though. I will make sure I link up a glucometer and how to use it at stephencabral.com/1397. I will embed that show. I'll tell you about that glucometer. Okay, so here's the thing. If your blood sugar is not down by the time you go to bed, you miss out at 8 hours to 10 hours of tapping into body fat. Because if your blood sugar is low, believe it or not, when you're asleep, when you're resting, you have your greatest percentage of body fat being burned. Now, I know it's not the greatest amount of calories or body fat total. Interval training is great at that. High intensity resistance training is great at that as well. So those are all great ways to do it. But at night, you burn body fat. It is your preferred fuel source while sleeping if, and it's a big if your blood sugar is regulated. So that's why we work so hard with people to make sure that their blood sugar is regulated so they can tap into more body fat. So now, not only you naturally using your fat as fuel overnight, but you're working on body transformation 24 hours a day. So hopefully today's podcast was helpful. I went all the way from 4 a.m. right up to when you're sleeping at night. Again, carbohydrates are not the enemy. You just have to use them to your advantage, and you'll be able to enjoy all foods out there. Remember, there's no bad foods unless it's processed. Good foods, nature gave us nice fruit. They gave us veggies. They gave us some sweet potatoes and tubers. They gave us good proteins. They gave us olives and walnuts and avocados. So we can use all of these to our advantage, customize it for yourself, make sure your blood sugar is regulated, and follow the blood sugar body clock. It really will work to your advantage. I'm telling you right now, you'll be happier, you'll have more energy, you'll be in a better mood, and yes, you'll get to eat some carbs. So hopefully this was helpful. If it was, please do feel free to pass this show along to anyone you believe it could serve.
Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.